Welcome to Real Estate Talk. We're tackling your questions about real estate. Today's question is, how does closing day work?
Yes. First off, closing day is a big deal. You submitted tons of documents and have gone through inspections and more. And now you're ready to send your money, sign, and get the keys. Joe, break down, what does it mean to close?
I was talking to you before this too. I feel like people have different definitions of what it is, but just collectively, it's about the process of transferring the money and signing the final paperwork for a house. I always viewed as an agent that closing was really the moment when the deed for the house is filed in the new owner's name at the courthouse, which we've mentioned before. It's always on a Monday through Friday because courts are closed on the weekends. It's why closing day is never a Saturday or Sunday. But like that to me was like the closing moment is when it's actually filed in the new owner's name. But a lot of people refer to it as, that sort of appointment where you sign the final paperwork and the money's transferred over.
Yeah, that's so funny that you say that. You actually have me thinking because when the money changes hands is typically when we're going to give keys and stuff like that, not necessarily the time that it's recorded. So yeah, that's a good call out. Let's talk a little bit about what a closing agent does. This is part of the process. And it may vary depending on if you're like in a title escrow state or an attorney state, but essentially a closing agent ensures that all the documents are in order, in alignment with local rules and regulations. They coordinate the signing, and they're typically a neutral third party that processes the exchange of funds from the buyer to the seller. And they also pay off any liens or debts that are on the property as part of the seller's proceeds. So what do you need in order to have a smooth closing day? You'll need, first of all, money, money for your down payment and your closing costs are ready. I'd like to say a day or two before your official closing date. Most people will want to send a wire, but in some cases, you can bring a cashier's check or a money order. You just have to note that no personal checks are accepted on the closing date. And also, fun fact, because this has actually happened to be here in Texas a couple of times, you have to make sure that if you are sending the funds electronically to the closing agent, that number one, you verify that you're sending it to the right people. So you call that title company closing agent directly to verify those things, but also know that there's a difference between ACH and a wire. So if you're sending something through bill pay at your bank, that's an ACH. That's not going to fly on the day of closing. Have you had an experience with that, Joe? I see you kind of nodding your head.
Where my mind where my mind actually went was like, how many years is it going to be before we're talking about like crypto transfers, just for the security aspect of it and everything? Like, I know that happens now. It's very rare. So we're not actually trying to prep anybody for that, but this episode could sound different 5 years from now.
Oh, totally. Also, in addition to the funds, the closing agent will send you a list of everything that you need to bring. So your government issued ID, make sure it's valid, it's not expired. Sometimes they may need homeowners insurance policy information. A lot of times you have already provided that by the time you get to this date. Your agent's going to provide them with a copy of the contract. Anything else that the bank requires for loan approval is something that you and your agent will partner together to get that to the closing agent. And then we talked about the cashier's check. And you might still want to bring up a checkbook with personal checks just in case there's something else that comes up. It's not going to be a surprise to you. You're going to know a few days beforehand, but be prepared to move and shake so that you have a smooth closing day.
Yeah, let's talk about that closing day appointment, which is usually at the title company or sort of like this like a third party where buyer and seller come together in some markets, but sometimes in markets, buyer and seller meet separately. And so when you arrive at the title company, you'll meet with the closing agent or the attorney. And like I said, the co-borrowers, if you're buying with somebody, will be with you and you'll sign that final paperwork. And sometimes the question is, should anyone else be there? Well, your agent can be there especially if you feel a lot more comfortable if your real estate agent's there. They've got you to this point, then of course agents can show up too. You just want to make sure that that expectation is set up front that you want your agent to be with you. And also, I just like to say, take as much time as you need to really understand everything before you sign. Closing agents, Courtney, they do this a lot, right? And so I'm sure you've been part of a lot of closings where they're moving very quickly through the information.
Mm-hmm.
And for the times I was there as the agent, I was looking at my client, and I would actually slow it down for him to say, hey, can you go over that part one more time just so my client's clear about what it actually means? Because sometimes they just get into the muscle memory of getting really quickly through the information. So
Yeah, for sure.
another pro tip on that front is maybe take the day off work to give yourself plenty of time to be able to digest that information instead of like rushing it into a lunch hour or something.
For sure, Joe. Let me add one more thing here that I think is really important. Sometimes we will have a married couple, but maybe only one of the spouses is actually purchasing the home. In some cases, the non-borrowing spouse may have to sign. So that is something that you definitely want to clarify with your agent and the closing agent ahead of time so that whoever needs to actually sign the paperwork, even though they might not be actually borrowing with you, that's like you have a plan for that because you don't want to be caught off guard.
Yeah, that's a great call. And once all the documents are signed and the payments are exchanged, I'd love to say the home is yours. This is part of that anticlimactic moment that I'm mentioning where you feel really good that things are on the way to being able to move into the property. But what actually happens is that paperwork and the new deed, again, is filed at the courthouse. And that's the moment where the home is yours. That can be a little bit different than when you get the keys. So, Courtney, what's the best way? Like, how do you respond to a client that says, when do I get the keys?
Yeah. Well, first of all, we go back to the contract because typically there is going to be a provision in the contract that says what happens upon closing and funding. Okay. So there's two different steps there. And then of course, the recording of the deed. So you'll want to talk to your agent and go directly to the contract. In some cases, it is common for a seller to negotiate a rent back or it's called lease back here in Texas, where even after closing, they lease the property from you as the new owner. So you got to look at the paperwork and make sure that you and your agent are in alignment there. But it's all going to be in the contract.
So here's another probably full episode is the stories that you and I might have about when somebody got the keys too early.
Yeah.
There are a lot of agent horror stories about that too. So just make sure all of these, make sure everyone's on the same page about how that goes down.
For sure. And I wanted to add some post-closing tips because I know every agent has usually some templates that they share with their client once they've gotten that email saying, hey, we're all closed and funded. So I'll hit it from the buy side first. And then if for sellers, just if we have any sellers watching. So for buyers, you do want to contact your local tax assessor to understand what you need to do to file for a homestead exemption if you plan on actually living in the property that you're buying. Okay. This may require you to update your address on your driver's license. So like, look at all of the rules. Obviously, you want to make sure that you activate the utilities. One thing that you can't forget, buyers, you have to make sure that you rekey the house after you close. Okay, because you don't know if there's some strange key, the neighbor or a relative that has a key to the house, and so just for safety purposes, I always tell buyers, hey, make sure you rekey. Some of our homes have smart locks, so it makes it really easy. So that's the buy side post closing kind of checklist. Joe, is there anything else that you can think of that you normally advise your buyers to do after closing?
Yeah, one of the things that I like to tell buyers is to get in touch with the seller beforehand to see if there are any sort of regular maintenance people that that they have ready. Whether what comes to top of mind for me is maybe someone does lawn care, and maybe because they've been doing lawn care for a long time, and you like the way it looked when you saw the house, like just get all that contact information, and especially just any people that are familiar, contractors like plumbers, electricians that are familiar with the property. Again, make your own choices on that too, but it's sometimes nice to have a nice rundown of that, and also like manuals to some of the appliances that exist in the home is helpful to have from sellers.
Very, very good. Now let's hit it on the sell side. Sellers, you're going to want to cancel utilities. Also, once you've actually moved out, that's key. You're going to want to make sure that you cancel your insurance if you on that particular property. Obviously, you need insurance on your next home. Okay, make sure you provide your insurance company with your forwarding address for any refunds of any unused premiums. Okay, you'll also want to provide your current mortgage company that you just paid off in this sale with your forwarding address for any escrow refunds. Those are usually processed 30 to 60 days after your mortgage is completely paid off and you've sold the home. So you don't want to leave any money on the table, okay? This isn't an exhaustive list, so make sure you connect with your agent on any other items that maybe we haven't covered in this video. So you have a clear plan and you get to either enjoy your new home if you're a buyer, or seller, enter your next new home and enjoy that process. We'll be back with another episode with tips to help you navigate the world of real estate. Let us know in the comments if you have any other questions or topics that you'd like us to cover. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. We've got a lot of great things coming in the near future. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.